Okay, so moving on to the legs. So we've got a pretty good pass of the body control. You know, we've done our due diligence and we've maybe got it 90% correct. So now we'll move on to the legs and do the same thing. I'm not expecting them to be absolutely perfect after these passes. This is just a first pass. So what usually happens is I'll get the body control and the legs working pretty well and then move back around once we've done the top half of the body. So just looking at the feet controls here, I can see we've got a bit of slippy slidey going on, and that's because we put the curves on spline. So with the feet I'll generally press the auto tangent button, and that just means that if it finds two values that are the same on keys one after the other, then it will put flat tangents on them, which means they won't move, they will stay solid. So with the feet it's a good idea to put them on auto tangent. It just saves you a bit of time going through and finding those moments where the feet are meant to be on the ground, but they're sliding around. So now those feet are locked on the platform now, so that's good. Let's have a look at what those feet are doing. So I can see that they are intersecting. That means the feet are passing through the platform geometry. So if we just zoom in on the feet there and have a closer look, so you can see it's going right through there. So I need to fix that. So I think we'll have to raise the feet, make them a bit higher at these points, just so we get correct foot contact for a believable push off from the platform. So let's raise them up. I've got both feet controls selected here, and now because I've got Sync Graph Editor Display and Sync Timeline Display checked, it means that if I hit Translate Y in the channel box, it will show me the Translate Y from both the controls I have selected. It will also only key that attribute when I hit S. So it's a good way of specifying which curves you want to actually work with. And I can easily grab the keys from both curves at the same time. I'm just going to add a new key here and just raise it. And then the same again. And just work my way through, just making that contact feel more correct. So I'll just continue to step backwards and forwards through the animation, just raise them where I feel it needs to be raised. So do the same on yours. I can see the toes are just pushing through the platform there, and the heels are still raised, whereas actually in the reference I've got my heels on the ground, so that does feel a little strange. So I think we need to drop those heels during this moment to make the feet feel more correct. So I should just be able to reduce or remove the toe roll in the foot that we added earlier. So I'll just get rid of that, zero that. And now I can see the toe roll attribute in the graph here, just like any other attribute. So we have curves for that as well. So I can pull this down to reduce the toe roll a little here, so that the heel drops but then just bounces slightly. So let's work on this foot closest to the camera individually. It will just select that control, and I'm just going to start working frame by frame and making sure that we don't get any of that intersection. So I can see here the toes are going straight through the platform. So we're going to try and remove that problem, just going frame by frame and adjusting the foot where it needs to be moved. So we're going to lift it just to make sure we are getting that contact and the push off from the toes. I've just switched off Neb's curve so I get a better view of the foot, and I feel like we need to fix this pose here because our foot flies away from the platform rather than pushing off. So we need to fix this pose here on frame 50. I notice on frame 49 I don't have a key on every attribute, so I need to key that before I start playing around with frame 50, otherwise it's going to ruin the animation on frame 49, as Maya doesn't have a record of where the foot is in frame 49. So as an example here, if I move or rotate it on frame 50, you'll see frame 49, the foot now goes straight through the platform, because we haven't told Maya not to adjust those curves by placing a key there. So if I just undo this and then place a key on 49 first, then I'm free to move the foot on frame 50 without ruining the work we've done on frame 49. And now I can just keep adjusting the foot beyond that. So frame 50, we'll just make sure we're in contact. It's better. But actually it'd be nice to get some toes pushing off the end of that platform, so maybe we need to use some toe attributes first. So I think a bit of toe X attribute, I'll just apply some of that. It'll go through the platform, but I'll just need to adjust the position of the foot afterwards. So I'm going to grab it and move it forward, but at the moment I only have toe X selected, so I'll just have to deselect the foot control and select it again so that all the attributes are selected, so that when I hit S it keys everything rather than just keying toe X. So there we go, that's feeling better, and now the foot leaves the platform, so let's remove that toe X attribute, and I'll just rotate the foot back to get that push off from the platform, just some overlap on the foot. Actually maybe a little bit of toe X back in, just to exaggerate that feeling and just let that toe resolve over a few frames rather than just snapping back. Okay, so let's have a look and see how that's feeling. So I'm just looking in the perspective and the camera view now. So the push-off's feeling, I think that's feeling better. So I can see in the camera view the feet, the right foot, sorry, his left foot, the screen right foot, maintains contact. The leg is broken a bit at the moment when we get in the air, but if I just look at the foot itself, that push-off is feeling more correct. His right leg, his right foot is just floating away from the platform, so that needs some work. So I think we should go and do the same thing now to his right foot. So I'm just going to grab his right foot and do the same thing again, so add some toe X rotation, just trying to make that foot look like it's pushing off from the toes. So I'll switch the perspective view around to the other side so we get a good look at it, and then I can adjust and making sure we deselect and reselect the control if we're selecting specific attributes, just so we don't end up keying just the one attribute, making sure we key everything, and then just going through frame by frame and adjusting, just putting that toe back in the same position. We'll spin round to the front, make sure we're not getting too much sliding, which maybe there's a bit of sliding going on there. Looking from the camera view, how does it feel? I can feel the toe hooking over the platform, which is good, but I think that sliding was a bit too much, so I just rotate the foot back out just to try and get some contact that's not just slipping over the platform. It needs to get some purchase on there so that it can push off. So let's just see how that's feeling. Okay, cool. I think I'm starting to believe that push off now. So now why don't we go and fix those hyperextended legs. I see that when we launch here, you get a very straight leg, his left leg, the screen right leg. So, and that's just because we played with the arc using the body control. Because we raised the body control a bit higher in Translate Y, it just means the feet got left behind. So we're going to go back and just fix that, paying attention to our reference, and just trying to maintain what we had previously, basically. And at the top of the leap is where we had our compression in the body, the high point of the leap. So actually I might just raise those feet even more. Let's push that even higher. So let's look at the high point of the leap and just really get a nice squash on those legs, a nice bend, and just amp up the action. Something else we did was where the legs go in and out or closer together and further apart, and I feel like they're wavering a little bit now. So they go in, they go out, and then they come in again. So let's just fix that so that they go in and then come out rather than being too wavery. So I'm just going to move them and Translate X. We can look at the curve here and see that we really want to get a nice U shape on that curve. So they go in and then they go out again. At the minute, if I push that, now maybe I'll leave that one actually and pull them in. So if I drop this down, they'll come in. So I can see on the curve that it starts out and it goes in and then it moves out again. On the other foot it will be the same, just reverse, so it'll go up and down, just because one's moving in negative values and one's moving in positive values. Let's just have a look at this right foot. I notice on the curves it's a bit flat at the top, so I'll just grab the tangents and move them down just to get a curve, make the actual translate X curve be more rounded at the top, just for some more cushioning of the action, a bit more continuous motion rather than holding in a position. So now I just want to address the actual push off from the platform. I don't feel like we have a nice extension on those legs. They're both staying quite bent, especially his right one. It's very bent the whole way up. So you need to feel the legs reach an extreme. So if you were to jump, there's a point where your legs will straighten out before they compress again at the top of the jump. At the minute, the legs are staying quite bent, which makes the jump feel less powerful and less natural and less believable. So I just want to go through those legs and just make sure that we get some extension of those legs without it overextending and suddenly going from a slight knee bend to a straight knee, because you'll start to feel, if that happens, you'll start to feel a pop in the motion, which again will feel unnatural and will be less believable. So now it's just a case of scrubbing through, adjusting the foot, frame by frame. Like I said, this is animation, there's nowhere to hide, we have to do the work, so let's do that. So I'm just going to pull the leg back down, to a point where it still feels natural, where it's not overextending, where we're trying to get the feeling of it pushing off from the platform. That's the main thing we're trying to achieve here. So we really feel some action. I'm not loving that foot there, it feels a little broken where I'm rotating the foot down. The ankle feels a little, yeah, broken is the word really. So let's see what we can do there. Maybe I can turn it towards, rotate it in. Starts to feel a bit better. Sometimes you just have to work with what you've got in a rig. It's the combination of trying to get the imagery, the poses or the frames feeling correct, but also the motion as well. So I'm trying to get that push off and trying to keep a bit of a straighter leg as we launch. I also want the feet to feel believable and physically correct. So I think that's feeling a bit better. Feel like that push off, I buy that. So let's just scrub through that a few times and see how that's feeling. So just small adjustments now. I'm just looking at the path of that leg and I'm just noticing the knee and how quickly that knee moves and the angle of the thigh, the upper leg. And I just noticed that upper leg, the angles it creates, it's quite vertical now. And as it moves toward being horizontal at the top of the jump, I think we could push that, the speed it gets to being, I know it's not horizontal, let's say 45 degrees, but let's just push that so it goes here a little higher, a little quicker, just so it's leading the other leg. You may think, what's the point of that? It's such a small change, but these are the things that really make a difference in your animation. The fact that different parts of the body moving at different times are going to bring so much to the quality of your work. So always look for having things move at different times. See if you can have different parts of the body lead and other bits follow. I'm just doing the similar thing to the left leg now, so it's nice if that knee actually raises higher than the one behind it, just so you get contrast in silhouette and body parts. It's just having things move at different rates, make things look more interesting. So let's see how that works. Alright, so we've worked hard on the launch from the platform and we've got those legs crunching up high at the top of the arc. We've got the right leg leading the left leg a little on that raise, and the left leg then catches up. And I think that's working pretty nicely. I really believe that push off from the platform now. So we've had a look at the legs and the hips leaving the block. Let's just have a look at what they do when we land at the bottom. So we've got some hyperextended legs again, which aren't quite working. They're a bit broken. I just want to check what our hips are doing and see what that up and down is doing when we actually do come to the ground. Do we get a nice cushion out of it? So if I just have a look through, scrub through, comes down, he takes the weight of himself very soon and then he drops again. Is that what is happening in the reference? So he takes the weight. Not really, I'd say the hips go down, they cushion, and then they come up again. So you can see that they're dropping, they cushion, and they come up again. He's just jumped a long way down. I want that to cushion, so I'm going to drop this lower. So it hits the ground and then cushions, the legs engage. You know, he supports the weight of himself. And then there's a little recovery just here. It's a quick recovery, but you know, he's a strong guy. And then he just settles. What is it doing in the forward axes? Let's have a look at the translate. So he settles himself. Maybe he should carry on forward a little bit there. So it looks like his forward momentum stops quite the energy sharply. So maybe we should just be taken out by the fact that it's stopping on the ground. You can just keep it moving forward, you know, slower than it was when he was jumping down. But if that momentum continues, it will feel all the better and the cleaner. You know, the more believable. Let's have a look at that again. You know what, let's do a play blast with the reference. Alright, we are getting there, aren't we? So let's just see what the body's doing on the whole. If I look at the hips and just track their path, and just checking against the reference, and I think actually we're missing the small bounce that happens at the end. The way our animation at the minute lands is a little bit more simple than what happens in the reference. In the reference, he lands and the hips do a little bounce. I think we should get that into our animation. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll need to look at the Y translation. So let's check in the graph and see what's happening. So we can look at our curves here and see that the graph, the curve goes down and up. It doesn't have the down, up residual bounce that's in the reference. So let's start adding that in. So we'll need to add in another key somewhere, but I think I'll start just by moving that high point a little sooner than it was, which gives us time here. I'll just extend the timeline. It gives us time to add a new key, so I just added a new key. I can just pull that down and kind of draw it in the curves, draw the up and down, at least to begin with. I'm just going to grab this last key and just put it on flat tangent, just so that the motion, when it gets to the end of the animation, reaches the settle in a smoother way. If it wasn't there like this, then it'll just stop and it'll feel a bit unnatural. So if we stick the last key on flat, it just helps us out and makes the animation finish more smoothly. So let's take a look at that. Oh, it's a little bit soft. A little bit soft on that bounce, isn't it? So let's speed that up. So I'm just going to grab the curves and just draw it in basically. So if he rises sooner, like this, you can draw it in the curves. Maybe just not quite as high, but you can adjust it quite easily. That's already feeling more like the reference, so a bit sharper, a bit quicker, a bit more ready for action. Let's see. I'm just thinking maybe it needs to happen a bit earlier, for a bit of a harder bounce. Just check against the reference. It's got a similar feeling to the reference now. But what else can we adjust? I'm just going to look at it a few times, see how we feel. The hips seem to have a slight drift or something at the end. right at the end here, they bounce out and then they're a bit soft coming down. I think we need to adjust the curves here, so let's have a look. Maybe it's just dropping down a bit too low, so let's raise these and just adjust these tangents for a smoother down and up on those hips. Let's see what that did. Cool, that's feeling better. I'm just looking at the hips really and the relationship to the legs. It's broken the arm somewhat, but I'm just interested in getting that bounce, making it feel solid, making it feel like the reference, making him feel superhero. Alright, so we took a bit of a detour there, did some work on the hips again, so we should get back to the legs, but it's not unusual to go backwards and forwards. But before we do, let's just save this so we don't lose where we're up to, and just version up to Anim version 1.2. Right, back to those legs. And let's fix the hyperextension on them. So the leap here, the legs look pretty good, but here they've stretched out. So at the top they're not bad, but as we come down they're super stretched out and we've got some broken knees, so we need to fix that. So I just grab hold of those foot IK controls. If I just hit F and we'll have a closer look, you can see we've got some quite broken ankles here and some extended legs. That's as far as it can go. Look, so ideally you want to keep these controls on the rig. You know, you could start posing things like this, but really you've pushed it too far. So if I lift it and just get a little bit of bend back in the leg, like that, and then as we come down again, we're okay there. We're just about at the ground here. It's hyperextended, so I'm just going to lift them slightly, and then we hit the ground. And we want to hit the ground with some impact. So really, the frame after those toes hit, we want the feet flat on the ground. So let's do the old middle mouse click and just copy the frame after to the frame before, just so that we get a nice, impactful, forceful landing. There you go, simple as that. Now let's check out the heels. What happens in the reference at this point? When do my heels come detail there? I'll just check the reference. So pretty soon, so the heels, those heels come rise. So quite I think I want to start feeling that. I aren't doing that yet, so we need to add some heel rising by using the toe roll attribute on these foot IK controls. Just grab that and we'll look at the graph and see what the curve is doing. So we can see that it's got quite a smooth rise as it happens, but it's happening a bit late. So I think actually I'll just grab this key and just shift it over to the left so that the heel starts rising earlier and sharper. So now we've got foot lands and then a frame and then the heel starts to rise, but actually I think it should rise the frame after we land. So we just have the heel start coming off ever so slightly and then reach its settled position. It'll feel more natural if it's not quite so sudden. I'm just seeing a bit of drift or something in that foot there. What's happening? It's like it's rolling over too far. What is that? I don't think it's my toe roll. Just check. No, it's not that. So it must be another attribute. Bear with me. I will hunt around to see what's happening. So I'm just going to double check the rotations. No, they're all flat, so they're not moving. So what have we got? What else is changing in this channel box? Ah, here we go. Toe tips. Let's pull this down, see what we get. It's reduced it a bit, but it's still, the front is coming off the ground. It's feeling a bit strange. So actually I'm just going to delete all of these keys so it stays 0. And that, I think that's better. That's feeling more solid and more natural. So we'll just get rid of those keys. I'm just scrubbing through here. I just see that the heel hits and pushes the knee forward, and the knee kind of stops in the air. It hits an invisible wall. So it shoots forward and then stops. So I think, well, that is being affected by our toe roll attribute. So I think we'll just have a look at pulling that back so the knee isn't quite so high. Let's match what's happening in the reference. but then also when we get to it I think it needs to be a bit softer, so I'm going to grab hold of the high point here on 72 and just pull that down, so pull it down so it's got a softer run into it, and just have it ever so gradually move forward. There we go. So it just has a little bounce in the knee as well. Just looking at what happens in the reference, it just felt a little stiff and robotic. So let's see how that's feeling now. Alright, cool, that is feeling much more like the reference. Got that nice weighty feeling at the end now. I feel the little bounce that we've added in there and have worked through the legs, pulled the heels up. It's really making him feel like he's got a bit of weight behind him. It feels more physical, more appealing, more believable. And the bounce at the end is the action that you will recall when you're viewing it. You know, you might not see the fall from the platform because it's quite fast, but you will definitely notice the landing, and that tells you what has just happened. Now let's just take a look at his left foot, or the screen right foot. Just see what happens there. It's got the nice little roll as it balances on one side of the foot, which is cool. I like that. So very well done for following on and making it this far. I'm going to call this legs first pass animation complete.